Would we have a name yet for this thing?
Yeah, I know.
I have like slapping backboard,
Slappin Glass.
slapping glass. That's kind of funny.
I like that. What's wrong with Slappin Glass?
That's good. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Slappin Glass podcast, where we explore the best ideas, strategies, and coaches from around the world. Today's guest is head coach Scott Waterman from NCAA Division II Academy of Art in San Francisco, California. Today we're going to go behind the scenes and talk about Coach Waterman's first year as a head coach. Highlights include talking about his first weeks on the job, developing an offensive and defensive philosophy, hiring a staff, working with administrators, and so much more. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to the Slappin Glass podcast on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or Google, and follow us on Twitter and YouTube for daily, in-depth coaching breakdowns. Thanks for following along, and please enjoy our conversation with Scott Waterman. Coach Waterman, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Hey, Dan, Pat, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on, and you guys do great work, and just want to help contribute to what you guys do. So thank you guys for helping grow the game.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it. Glad to have you here.
Yeah. Now, Scott, obviously you and I have known each other from your years coaching the SCIAC, and then from beyond. You and Pat go way back, went to the same high school. You coached Pat, like we were talking about right before we started. Was it freshman year?
Pat was a great freshman basketball player. There was a reason why he went and played overseas. There was a reason why we got a lot of sets for him.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, good players make great coaches. So that helped.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got a lot of good El Toro love here on the podcast today. So we're excited to talk to you so much about your first year coaching experience as a head coach. You've done a lot of great podcasts about your history of coming up through coaching, which we're not going to get too much into in this podcast. People can go find them on some of the other ones that you've been on. But long story short, you've been in the business for a long time. And this year was your first year officially taking over as the head coach at Academy of Art. And so we want to focus on the first year experience that you had and really dig into the nuts and bolts and the ups and downs and all the good and bad that came with it. Overall, from the outside looking in, you had a very successful first season taking over. You guys went to the tournament. You won 7 out of your last 10. You have a great incoming recruiting class. You got a lot of stuff going for you. And so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So to kick us off here, I want, if you could, take us back and maybe go through the first moments or so when you first learned that you were taking over at Academy of Art, your first head coaching job. What was going through your head, and then what were your first steps after that call of what you were thinking you were going to do next?
That's funny. It's funny that you asked that, because I think, a lot of people have stories like this of when they got the call. And I was coming back from the Bahamas, and I was supposed to have found out while I was in the Bahamas. So I had my phone on, the whole time. My international roaming charges was off the charts, and I never heard anything. And we got back to the Miami airport, and we were literally about to board the flight, and Brad Jones, our athletic director, called me and said I got the job. And I was in the middle of the Miami International Terminal, about to fly back to San Francisco at the time. And that's when I found out, and I had a 6-hour plane ride where my head literally spun the entire time of what the next steps were, what I was going to go through, what I needed to do. And I still have the list of things. I kept it because it's pretty funny as you look back. But first thing that kind of went through my mind was, obviously I'd been preparing for the interview, and I knew the roster, and it was immediately, what do I need to recruit? I had been at Dominican, a school in our league beforehand, so I was kind of thumbing through those recruits. seeing, who was still available, going through some recruiting lists. And then it was, things that I had to do immediately when I met with the team. There's like 4 or 5 lists on this page, and it was what I wanted to talk about when I met with the team. And then there was another list of potential assistant coaches that, and the funny thing is I was going through the process, people already start reaching out to you as, it spins on Hoop Dirt or on Twitter that you were kind of involved in the job. So there were a lot of people, and I started kind of mulling those names through my head of what I wanted to hire and what would be a good fit. And then, how I wanted to start coaching. And I went through offensively and defensively and just had a list of all these things that, I had to be, versed on, and the terminology we're going to use. And it was really overwhelming as you sit there and, you think about, like drills that we as coaches do. And now all of a sudden you're put in charge of how you want to phrase things and how you want to run the drill and what concepts you want to do. Or are you going to ice ball screens on the wing? Are we going to hedge? And you come up with a list of 100 different things, just defensively and then offensively, of concepts, drills, terminology. And that was kind of a 6-hour plane ride of lists and things like that. And when I got off the plane, I think my head was spinning, and I was incredibly excited, but just knew that, it was going to be a process.
Coach, so you talk about all the things that, like you said, that you want to do with recruiting and your offense and how you want to play defense. Was there anything in the interview process, talking with the AD, that there was any sort of directive they were giving you, what they also envisioned for the team, whether it be we want to be more consistent in making conference tournaments, or is it just we need to get the GPA of the team up, or is there any sort of directive that they were also giving you when you were, or were they going to give you complete freedom? They just were looking for, obviously winning is obviously every time.
Yeah.
But anything else?
Yeah. So I think one of the big things was consistency in winning. So the school has had basketball for 12 years, and the year or right before I got the job was the first time the school had ever made the NCAA tournament, the conference tournament. They've never made an NCAA tournament. And they were looking for someone who could, consistently make the conference tournament and make that next step into competing for NCAA tournaments, winning the conference, because we have some very great resources and they were never truly successfully used. And for what we had, the program should have been better ahead of time, and not to disparage the previous coach by any means, because I thought he did a good job. But on the same token, it was time to take the program to the next level. And that's something that, I was kind of given the reins to do. So the fact that we made the conference tournament in our first year was a positive step towards that.
Oh. Scott, you mentioned a huge list of stuff that you wrote down when you're on the flight back. And, I was trying to kind of write down all the directions that you were thinking of going. But when you landed, what were the first 1 or 2 things that you actually had to do, maybe administratively, that maybe people don't realize that a head coach would have to take care of, outside of the X's and O's? But what were some things that were first or second on your list that you needed to get done right away when you got back?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, when I mentioned players, it was all about recruiting and starting to throw my name out there that I got in the job, because again, it was still hadn't been, publicized yet, and trying to get recruiting going. That was priority number 1. Priority number 2, like I said, was assistant coaches. And then I think the most important recruits, though, were the current returners to the program. So when I had the opportunity to finally meet them, it was about a week later when I got officially announced to them. That was the most important thing, is when I met them as a team. And then later that day, I met with them all individually. I should say over the next 2 days, met with them all individually, and just got the opportunity to get to know them. And they were recruit priority number 1, regardless if I knew them or not. Those were the only guys remaining in the program. So I had to start to get to know them well and let them know me and open up, and not, just go out and just because I didn't recruit them or coach them previously, they weren't my guys, but they were my guys. So I wanted to treat them that way.
Can we go back a little bit? You talked about hiring a staff.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things out there that I know you get emails all the time, I get emails at Chapman all the time of people looking to break in to the business and how to get an assistant job and how to get onto a staff. How did you go about putting your staff together? Was it just through people you knew, or you reaching out to coaches, or you taking, resumes? Like, I'm sure you had hundreds of people trying to get onto your staff. And so what did that look like in hiring?
Yeah, and it's an interesting process because as I was going through, obviously I would say to anybody who's an assistant coach and aspires to be a head coach, make sure you start having a list of guys that you would potentially want to hire or that you feel would be good for when that moment comes, because you don't want to be, blindsided by all of a sudden you get a job and now you're overwhelmed and swamped. And, I think the biggest misperception is, and this happened to me, I'm not going to name, but a high major coach called me and said, "Hey, I've got a great guy that would be really good for you." And it's honored to have that coach call me. But on the same note, how do I know this guy? Is he going to fit well with me? And that was something that I was very conscientious of, that I was going to hire somebody that I knew, someone that had proven to me something in the past, one way or the other. And most importantly, guys that in my research had done or been really player-oriented coaches. And it's funny that I had a list, and there's a reason why I'm glad I did, because the first two guys actually ended up not taking the jobs for one reason or another. One got another head coaching job, and there were some other issues with the other one. So I ended up getting my next two guys, and they were the two guys that ended up ultimately being great fits. So it's just amazing how that stuff works. But I think sometimes you can easily get caught up in the process of, oh, Mike Krzyzewski's calling me about so-and-so, and I got to hire him just because Mike Krzyzewski is calling me. But sometimes that may not always be the best fit. And I really was conscientious of the fit because our school is unique with some of the facilities and the ways we can recruit. And I just wanted to make sure we have the right guys that could come in and help navigate through that process. And most importantly, we're going to be loyal to me in our program and athletic department.
One more follow-up on that.
Yeah, no problem.
Were you looking in hiring your two assistants, were you looking for specific skill sets for each one, saying, okay, when I'm putting my staff together, I want one guy that's a more defensive-minded coach or a more offensive X and O coach? You said that you wanted both of them to be, great with the players, but in the other two, was there specific skill sets you're looking for, or was it just finding guys that are great at kind of multiple things?
I wanted guys that had been in positions that had been able to do it all, see it all. So, guys that had been, at the Division II level, not necessarily, but these two guys had, and they've done equipment. They've coached on the offense. They've coached on the defense. They've recruited. So I wanted just versatile guys. And like I said, the player relationship aspect was huge. But guys that had just been through it all. And I didn't want guys that, it's a Division II program where you don't have equipment managers. We do the laundry. So doing all those type of things isn't above them by any means. So that was really important as well.
Yeah. When looking for assistants, you say the right fit. Do you refer that are on the same philosophical level with you as far as basketball X's and O's, or are you also looking for some, maybe they have differing opinions or dissenting voices that you feel could also challenge your knowledge or how you approach the game that could ultimately lead to then, development or breakthrough or something that you weren't seeing that they see that could help you?
No, without question. I think personality, when I say fit for them, would be personality with me, loyalty with me, those type of things. But I think that as a head coach, I learned and was pushed by my assistants a ton. And I think that's great. At the end of the day, sometimes I went with it, sometimes I didn't. But I loved having their ideas and helping broaden my knowledge. But sometimes as a head coach, you get stuck in this rut of, all right, we're doing this. This is the way we're going to do it. And it's easy to stay in it. And especially if you're not having success and you keep fighting it. And I think my assistants did a great job of of making sure, I saw the bigger picture at times and gave me great ideas, feedback, and we used it a ton.
Go ahead, Pat. You another one?
No. Go ahead, Dan.
Going back to another item on your list that you talked about, and as far as putting things together, was the X's and O's portion of it and your philosophy offensively and defensively.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know you and I have talked about this too when, we put up stuff every day on Slappin Glass, and not everything's going to work for everybody's teams. And, there's a beautiful set that some team in Spain runs that just won't work at certain levels. So how did you go about starting to chunk down your probably huge playbook of ideas into what you actually thought you wanted to do? Was there a process, or was it just sort of a give and take, looking at what your roster was going to be as well?
It was a combination of both, I think. I think there was some trial and error to it, because we put some things in, and by about a week afterwards, we never ran it again. And on the flip side, there was some stuff that we put in that was good, and we went with it and modified it and just kept tweaking it. And I think that was something that, as a first-year head coach, I went in with a mindset of what I wanted to do and didn't necessarily adjust to the players. And I'll be the first to admit, I made 1,000,001 mistakes as a head coach this year, as a little aside here on that. But I think that that's something that, especially as a first-year head coach, when I kind of let up the reins at the end of the year a little bit and got away from some of the things that we had been doing, our teams just started to feel more comfortable. And I think I fought it for a lot of the first half of the year, trying to get them to do things that probably didn't fit necessarily our personnel great. And then as we modified it and I let them play a little bit more offensively, gave them a little bit more freedom, we started to have more success, and they felt a little bit more comfortable. So I think it was a lot of trial and error, but on the same token, just tweaking versus, all right, we ran a ball screen motion, and instead of just dumping it and going to dribble drive or flex or something like that, we just kept with it and modifying it until we found exactly what worked. And that was something that I was happy about, is that I wasn't going to just dump something because I didn't see value in it. I saw value in this, and we just kept tweaking it to make it work.
Coach, you also mentioned, going along with, putting in your offense, that of course, when you took over, you watched film from last season to learn about your guys. Mm-hmm. Did you at any point feel that you were going to take what they did successfully last year and kind of use it moving forward? Or did you feel, just to be true to yourself, like, we're coming in clean slate, I'm going to try to put in my offense, run things my way? Mm-hmm. Or did you ever have the idea of like, this worked last year, maybe it'll also get some buy-in from the guys if we run some of the stuff they liked last year? Mm-hmm. Or what was your kind of thought process as you learned about the team? Yeah.
And I think, again, this goes kind of back to my initial conversations with the players when we first met, is they wanted to play a faster pace. Previous coaching staff, it's wanted to score in the 60s, and I wanted to score in the 80s. And I think the biggest problem was they were so used to that previous style that it took a while also for them to break. And it took a while in that transition as well. Again, probably why we had more success at the end of the year is we started just to get more comfortable with doing those things.
Yeah.
Kind of going off of that a little bit and getting buy-in from your guys. Mm-hmm. How difficult or easy was it to get buy-in as a brand new coach? You're still young. It's not like you came from somewhere else or you've been coaching for 30 years and you immediately have that kind of buy-in. How did you go about starting to do that? And maybe what were some things that you worked on to try to get the buy-in from the guys right away?
Yeah, it was tough, real tough, especially when you've got, I think we had, of the returners, all of them had been there. All of them were going to be either juniors or seniors coming back. So it wasn't like they were, freshmen who still had some, were molded, could be molded. These guys had been there and it had a set way. So again, it was going back to that personal relationship, doing film on the side with them, talking about, especially initially, talking about what my expectations for them were going to be as players and how I saw them fitting in. And this is, again, another thing is, we had eight guys and I brought in 8 guys, and you kind of get stuck as the guys that were returning see the incoming guys who are quote unquote your guys, even though they're really not. Everybody is, but there was kind of a butting of heads initially, and you have to get through that. And the team chemistry aspect is really important, again, as a first-year head coach, something that I learned the hard way, because initially at the beginning, we did a good job. And then about 4 or 5 games into the season, when we started losing, as my assistants really pointed out, our team chemistry is awful. Our guys are struggling, on the court, and there just wasn't a vibe. And it was because of team chemistry. And I had been so focused on, we got to teach this, we got to teach this, we got to put these things in. And it became so basketball centric, especially, once you get in November and you see, games on the games there, and it's all become kind of, my mindset changed away from that team oriented concept and more into win, 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 or how are we going to win? And I failed our team in that regard. It was actually after we lost to Chico on the day before Thanksgiving. The Chico coach texted me after the game, and Chico was really good, and it was a tough loss. We were right there. We could have beat him. And he texted me that night. He's a good friend, Coach Clint. And he said, hey, you've got a lot of talent, but you have to build chemistry. You have to build culture. And I could just see practice. We started having what I called the Brotherhood Challenge. It's something I got from Dartmouth. And before we practiced, we did goofy, hoaxy things, but it was all about building team chemistry. We had another thing I did. We had lunch buddies where I'd partner guys up that weren't necessarily good and didn't really know each other, or, one would have been a new guy, one was an old guy, and I made them go to lunch and have to send our staff a selfie of themselves at lunch together, and they had a talk. And it was those kind of things that started turning things around for us. And then as we got into January and we started to have more success, I think a lot of it came from doing those type of things.
Yeah. Kind of piggybacking off of this point, I mean, like you said, as you learned so much as your coach, and the value of chemistry and culture. I mean, what were some of your other things that really, looking back on that year, stood out? Like, yeah, I mean, if you had known this from day one, it would have really helped. Or what were some of your big learning curves? Yeah, as a first-year coach.
One thing that really stood out to me, and it's funny, is like I talk about, you have all these things going through your mind. And I would never say I second guess myself, but you have to be confident in your basketball abilities. I'd coached a long time. I'd been around a lot of things. And about the first 3 or 4 days of practice, I was there, but it was just kind of I wouldn't say nervous, but there was just something inside of me. And it was finally no, you know how to do this. You know how to coach. You're prepared for it. Just go do it. So that was a really huge thing for me, is just getting through that initial, kind of nervous energy, I guess you could say, but just getting through that. I think the second thing is how to coach in a game. I think we all, as assistant coaches, you can sit there and break down and do it, in your mind, but then you actually get up there and when are you going to call a timeout? When are you going to let your guys play? How do you handle, or when you walk into a huddle, are you going to be positive, or do you have to light them up and get into them? And it's all those things. And it was a mixed bag. Sometimes I was right on and I did it, and sometimes I failed, and I would go back at film and go, why did I do that? Or why did I make that sub? And it was all a growth. It's a huge growth curve in I think every single way. And I couldn't be more, I think the bummer thing of this whole pandemic was we didn't get to go jump right back in and be able to start doing it. But on the same token, I was able to go back through and I watched all of our games again, a lot of our practices, and see how I could be better as a coach and really break down things that I can do better to help our team in the future. So the growth curve is tremendous. And I don't think I think year 2 will be just like that too. I mean, hopefully a lot of growth in some of those areas, but then you start to continue to grow in different areas. So that's a great question. I think that you can't be closed-minded to how you do things, and you have to constantly reevaluate and focus. And I know I talk with Dan about this often. He'll say, "Oh, you ran a great set," and I tend to be pessimistic about things because I'm looking at it from just a whole different perspective of how I see how it should look. And but that's why I said going back through in this off season has been really good for me to really focus on how we're going to go forward in this program.
Yeah. Getting a little bit more detailed, as a first-year head coach, can you explain the difference? Let's say you're a first-year head coach for the first 38 minutes of the game, but then how is it being a first-year head coach in the last 2 minutes of the game when it's close? And is there anything is it really just trial by fire? Like you said, the best way to learn, but, you have in your head, if it's this situation, I'm always going to foul, or, I want to call the timeout to set up my defense, or I want to call a timeout to set up my offense. Mm-hmm. And then now you're in these last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Is it completely different? Is just throw the playbook out, you got to go with your gut? How can you speak on that? Being a first-year head coach in crunch time.
That's great. And I think one of the things that really prepared me for that is that most days at the end of practice, we did some sort of situation. And I think the hardest thing, and I learned this, I don't know, somewhere along my way, is at the end of a game, do things that your guys are familiar with. Don't try to come out and drop a new play that they've never seen before, because it's only going to lead to disaster. So we had prepared for a lot of things at the end of games, and practiced them. And in our walkthroughs, we'd run our certain plays every walkthrough. That would be our, home run hitter at the end of a game, or last second plays. So I always felt prepared for that. And I know the Concordia Irvine game, it came down, last 2 minutes was really tight, and we fouled. There was 3 straight possessions where we were up 3, I think, or 4, and we fouled on 3 times in a row to make them make free throws and then get the ball back, and they fouled us, and then we would foul again. And it was something that we'd worked on. So our guys felt really comfortable doing it, and I think that just being prepared for it was the biggest thing. And I think sometimes as an assistant coach, you sit there and you're nervous and you're just trying to, see what happens. But it was kind of the opposite for me. I felt really prepared and confident when we got into those situations.
How about pregame stress as an assistant and then a head coach? Did it change? Were you the same, or what was that like?
Let's just say so. Especially in our home gym, we have this hallway that's outside of our locker room that's probably 20 feet, I would say 25 feet, that kind of leads out to the court. I would get miles in walking back and forth on that thing before the game. My assistants were out on the court, and I would have, our guys look great. And I'd been pacing for about 25 minutes back there. So I don't know. I mean, it was a tough. Those were a tough moment, but once you got out there, you kind of forgot it all. I think it's just the buildup of finally being able to go do it versus I'm nervous about the game and how it's going to come out. It was just, let's get this going,
For sure.
And I did look at a lot of reading of my play card for 20 minutes as I paced.
Yep. That's great. Coach, jumping sort of out of the game and the tactics, as a head coach compared to an assistant, how did let's say your personality or your relationship with the guys change? I mean, obviously you're going to be making the tough decisions with who gets to play, who doesn't. What kind of were your notions going into the job of what you felt or how you would be compared to what was by the end of the season, what ended up happening or playing out?
Yeah. And I think I had a great relationship with the guys on our team, but it's definitely a different relationship when you're the head coach versus an assistant coach. And I think one of the great things about the guys I hired as assistant coaches is that they're a lot younger than me, and they can relate to those guys on a different level. I'm not playing, video games with them. I'm not as hip to the music as they are on all those things, shoes, watching the NBA, all the stuff that our guys do or my assistants really thrive with the team on. like I said, I have good relationships. I, spend a lot of time with them, but it's a different level. So I think that was really important. But I think another thing that's really different was when, some days, we're taking vans to games, or, we have to commute to practice. Our practice facility is about 2 miles from our main campus. And most of the time we take, a bus, or on the days we take vans, and you get in the van and no one gets in next to you, and it's you and like one walk on, that it's a different relationship. So I think that, again, it was helpful to hire great assistants who could relate with them on another level, but there is definitely a hierarchy of who the guys want to be around if they have a choice.
Yeah. I remember those van rides as well.
Yeah. Yes. We were in the assistant coach van.
Yeah.
Sort of the unsexy part of being a head coach is the administrative and budgeting and financial part of running a program. Could you shed light a little bit on becoming the head coach and taking over those responsibilities, and kind of what that looks like, maybe from a bird's eye view of taking over and all of that? Yeah.
There's definitely a high level of accountability that, an athletic director is going to hold the head coach to. That's, non-basketball, non-on-court related, be it, managing the budget, being engaged with some alumni, meetings, head coaches meetings, staff meetings for the department. So there's a lot of different things that, you think as a head coach, it's basketball. But on the flip side, there's, at this level, probably not as much as if you were go to a higher level per se, Division I. But the basketball time, you have to manage your time well, because, you may have a budget meeting. You may have to call some alumni. You may have to, meet with a sports information director, or meet with an academic person about, how your guys are doing. So there's different levels of things. And especially at this level, the Division II level, where you're not just surrounded with a staff of 6-7 guys, that you're really engaged in other things, and you're not just fully focused on basketball, which I think is good as well, because you have a really good feel for what's going on in your program, and you if guys not doing well in class, you can handle it, where you are with the budget and how we need to handle a recruiting trip. Are we going to be able to do it? Or, those type of things. So on the flip side, I thought it was really good for me, but there is a strong organizational component and accountability to the department that you have to do really well.
One of the things I know from knowing you personally that you're really good at is you're a great networker in the truest sense of, like, you're just involved with other people, as far as you're reaching out all the time, seeing how they're doing. You have a lot of respect amongst coaches, the whole college basketball landscape. Can you maybe talk about the value of networking, and not maybe how you go about it, but how it's helped your career, and how you can see it continuing to help you as you move from a first year to second and third year coach at the collegiate level?
Yeah, there obviously. Well, first of all, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it, and glad that people think of me in that manner. But I think that networking was really important to me for several reasons. I know we've talked about this before. It's helped me get every job I've had. It's never really been about being John Wooden of basketball. It's been about knowing people and just doing my job where I currently was well, and having a good network of people to help me get to that next step. So number one there. Number two, network became really important when I got the job, because I was able to reach out and pick a lot of my colleagues' brains on things that have been head coaches in the past, or been at different levels, and just get feels for different things. And not to say anybody's I took more than anybody else, but it was really good. One of my colleagues I called had been a head coach, and now it's a Division I assistant coach. And some of the stuff he gave me was great. Like I ran with it, but that he gave me. And it's really important, you know, in the industry where so many people, you know, have been in your chair and had success, had failure, that you're able to pick their minds and be able to, you know that you're not in this alone. And then going forward in my career, I think my network's really important. As I tell my assistants, I want to help them, you know, get to the next level, get to where they aspire to. You know, I'm very content and happy where I am. I have, you know, continue my relationships, but I'm not, you know, using this as a platform to get any other jobs. But I want to help my assistants get where they want to go and help them become better coaches. So one day they can aspire to be head coaches or whatever they want to do. And I'm just glad that I've surrounded myself with a great network of people who I can reach out to help them. And, you know, when you get into a bind, it's always great to hear someone who's been in that situation and how they've gotten out of it, especially as a first-year coach. So a lot of levels to that answer there for you.
Yeah. I had a quick follow-up, Pat. I can't.
No, go ahead. You're fine, Dan.
Okay. So one of the things I'm super interested in, and I had the opportunity to be head coach for a couple of years at the high school level before coming back and being an assistant at the college level, and kind of reflecting back on my years as a high school head coach, was when you move from an assistant to a head coach, is this crunch on your time, and you have to make so many decisions, and you have to like chunk things down and can't get lost in la la land and, you know, scrolling through Slappin Glass Twitter all night for plays, right? You got to make decisions and start moving forward. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, it's almost like you have to get better at saying no to things and really focusing in on what's truly important. And have you gotten better at that over the past year and a half, moving from an assistant coach to a head coach where everything is on your shoulders all the time?
Yeah, I would say I definitely have. I thought I was pretty good before, but it's just another level when you move over. And I like to tell people you move over 6 inches, but you move over light years, because just the demands and the energy that goes into it, you know, not to say that I didn't think about coaching all the time when I was assistant, but it's just magnified to another level now in my current position. So there's definitely truth to that. And I think the biggest area that that would really relate to is with watching film. Like I was always prepared when I did scouts before, but now as a head coach, I watched even more, especially of ourselves, our games, practices. And again, not to say that I didn't do it before, but it's just a whole another level of breaking it down and watching it and rewatching it and finding out what you need to get better at. Because at the end of the day, the practice plan, you're creating it, or you're getting some feedback from your assistants, but you're creating it. So you got to know what you need to work on. If you just keep going through the same motions every day, you know, how much success will you really have? I mean, if you have great players, it's one thing, but you have to continue to build and put things together and solve the problems. It's like a dam, and sometimes the hole's on one side, and then you got to plug that one and go to another one. It's just keep finding those holes and finding it all the way through. So you have to be much more in tune and detail oriented than you were before.
Coach, moving in as you're approaching your first preseason as a head coach, what are the things? I mean, what is your philosophy, or what are the things you're approaching? Is it, you know, the first 2 weeks we're putting in the defense, or I want to put in the offense for a week, and then we're moving to defense so the guys have someone to run? Mm-hmm. And then did you find yourself, crap, it's been 3 weeks, we haven't done anything on zone, I got to get zone in? Or how are you, like Dan said, compartmentalizing when there's so much you got to put in?
Yeah.
And it's your first year, never been through a preseason of your own doing.
Yeah.
What are you learning? How are you devoting your time?
Yeah, and I think as a first year head coach, if I could go do it all over again, that would be something that I would really change. Because, you know, at the beginning, you know, you kind of come up with your practice plan, you know, half offense, half defense, and you're just trying to throw everything in all at the same time. And if I were to go do it over again, we would put much more of an emphasis on the defense, especially early, and really get that down. And give our guys, and this is where I think I struggled, was I wanted to keep putting in our like ball screen offense and getting that good, and then I would let our defense get away. And I kind of around that same time where our chemistry issues, you know, started to be addressed, we also really started to focus more on defense in practice, and we got better at that. And yes, our offense waned, but on the flip side, it did help us in the end. So there's a lot to it, and it is a tough balance in trying to, individual improvement, defense, offense, and trying to get it all into 2 hours and 15 minutes. And you have to really go in and what is the most important thing to you? And it can't be 10 things. It's really got to be one thing. And even if it means, sacrificing something else, if this one thing is how you're going to judge your program and judge your team on, you have to ride with that as the one emphasis. And then you can always catch up on the back end. But if it's going to be that important to you, you really got to make that a staple and set the tone with that until you can, until it's good where you want it to be, and then take those next steps. And like I said, going back, that was one thing that I got away from was, God, our offense isn't great. We got to keep working on it. And when we really should have been focusing more on our defense instead of just, the 30 or 45 minutes we were putting into it.
Yeah. Did you find too, as the season went along, then your practice plans, would you then okay, today we're just going to focus on on-ball defense, and, maybe then you delegate to your assistants, you watch the offense, but what our focus is getting better on this one thing or this maybe two things in this practice. And then, just kind of, like you said, letting the other things go for right now because you can't coach everything in the 2 hours you have.
Yeah.
Did you find you improved in that, or was that important, or were you still able to do multiple things, accomplish multiple things within a practice?
Yeah, I think that how we would do it was I would make sure that in certain drills, this is what we had to accomplish, these 2 or 3 things, and then kind of take a broader overview as we got into more of the live stuff, 5-on-5 stuff. We do almost everything live in our practice, but I would make sure in these certain drills, we have to get out of this, whatever it is, ball screen, let's say. And we'd really emphasize it, and we wouldn't move on until we got it to where I wanted it to be, and be willing to sacrifice some of the things on the backside for whatever we were working on that day.
Awesome. Well, Coach, we've got some clips loaded up, and getting a chance to look at those offensive and defensive concepts that we were just talking about. So if you're all right with it, maybe I'll share my screen. We can jump in and look at a little bit of stuff from this season.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll run the clip. These first couple ones, Coach, are just your guys' transition. I think you're playing out at Hilo, Hawaii, right here. And just interested in sort of the concepts that you teach. You guys were a good transition team, and in this game particularly, you got some really nice looks at a transition. So I'll roll the clip, and this is off of a made shot. So my question is, made shot, you guys flow right into your offense, and it looks like you guys come over and you just talked about your ball screen offense, but you flow right into that ball screen. 2 things. One, what's your natural flow into the offense? What are some of the things that you're teaching the guys to do on a made shot break? And then 2, you make the shot here, he gets downhill and he gets a nice little floater, but I know you love ball movement and body movement. No passes, just gets into the paint, makes a shot. Are you okay with that, with them kind of playing free, making a decision, or you prefer the ball to move a little bit more before a shot like that?
So what we tell our 5-man is on that initial action, if he's out ahead and he's got an advantage, then he needs to be sprinting to the block. But because in this situation, we're not pushing it as fast as I would like, and he's more of a trail, we call it a trail 5. We let him just initiate the offense with the screen and get downhill. Again, would love to see our wing be deeper in that corner on this action. And as Josh Bagley, number 2 here, comes off this ball screen, we do give our guys freedom. Will I say that's a great shot? No, but it goes in. So again, we'll take it. Sure. But we'd love to have better spacing, guy in the corner looking to elevate out. And as he was, he probably could have taken one more dribble and gotten a wide open layup if he'd really exploded off that screen. But you can see our spacing is not great with our guys, both wings, getting to the corners.
So you would want both of these wings in the deep corner in a perfect world? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want the trail man running to the slot or top of the key, or where are you telling your trail man to run?
Yeah, he should be over about 2 more steps.
Yeah.
Right into here.
Also, with your pace coach, are you stressing in practice like 4 seconds, get it across half court, or within 7 seconds, we want to be into an action? What are kind of your principles with the pace, or how are you trying to get the point across to your guys?
We never really put a time. We just wanted to get it up as quick as we can and attack before the defense sets up.
Okay. Another transition here. You guys are sprinting into the lanes. Okay. My question here was transition into your post action. So it looks like you feed the post and transition and you immediately go into that a screen away for a shooter. What is your guys' general philosophy or action when we hit a post? Yeah,
so we had 2 options. We give our guys some freedom to make decisions, and we work on both. They can either hit the post and dive. So if it's below the block, we do what's called a Laker cut through the elbow. If the post's up a little bit higher, they can do a baseline cut like in the triangle offense from Phil Jackson, or they can screen away. So we give them all 3 options to read out of it. I don't like to be predictable. I think it's important that guys are able to do different things, mix it up. So we try to mix those up, and we'll do at the beginning of practice especially. Mix it up. Some days when we do that type of breakdown, we do screen away. Sometimes we'll pass and cut. So we work on both aspects of it.
On the weak side, do you just want the guy spacing? I mean, here he makes a dive cut, but I think he's just trying to read it since he hasn't been picked up. But are they just spacing? Do you want them exchanging? Or, if they can occupy the defense, that's just kind of gravy.
So ideally, we want either a down screen or a cut to the basket. And we give our guys freedom. So Vic, who number 20 here, who's filling that strong or weak side, weak side shelf, we call it, or excuse me, not shelf, slot. As he comes down, he wasn't the best of shooters. So we really didn't want him on the perimeter. So we told him his job was to dive. And Steph, who's elevating here out of that corner, he was, all league caliber player for us. And we wanted him elevating, getting to that spot. So it's kind of personnel based as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So with this one, looks like I would say he's your 4-man potentially in this lineup here, and leading the break. What options is he looking at? Are you letting him have freedom to make a play, get to the rim, obviously, if he can? If not, is he flowing into a handoff or a reversal with an on-ball? With one of your bigs now initiating the offense, what is it that you guys are teaching?
Yeah, so we actually say any of our 1 through 4 can bring the ball up the court. And Vic was, before I got here, was actually played some point guard. So he felt, comfortable with that. And we kind of let him have the ability to do so. But we tell all of our guards, quote unquote, and we'll play 3 or 4, that if they get a rebound or they're able to push it, that anybody can push the break and we'll fill around them. So we do give our guys that option. And I think, the one thing Vic does here is he does a great job getting downhill. And, it's not obviously the most fundamental of passes, but he gets it through. And we call those 1 more passes, and we get a great shot out of it. So, again, we want to be the aggressors. That's why I think one of the things that, this program, was really thriving for was for the ability to be an up-tempo style of play. And that's why we give more freedom to guys to be able to push it on the break. and make decisions. And one thing that we look at a lot is assist to turnover ratio. And if that falls to a point where it's not conducive, we will take that away from a guy having the ability to bring the ball up the floor.
Okay.
Coach, that reminds me of a good question if we can kind of step out of the scouting. As a head coach at halftime or after a game, what are the main stats you're looking at to determine, maybe is it you always look at rebounds, you always look at assists, you always are looking at turnovers, or what are kind of the things on the scout sheet that you're emphasizing or sticking out to you to?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And for everybody, it's different. I'm not a big, some guys will be a little bit more analytical based, using some analytic stuff. The big things I will look at is turnovers, rebounds that are actually on the stat sheet. And then the thing that we actually tracked, that was our goal every game, was what we called a kill, which was 3 stops in a row. And our goal was to get 7 kills in a game. And I will tell you that in the 12 wins we got, in 11 of them, we got 7 kills. So that was something that we really prided ourselves on. And I knew it was great. We got to a point maybe after about the second or third game we did it. If we got to 2 stops in a row, like you could hear the whole bench yelling, get the kill. And that was great that we got that mentality. And we spent, every day in practice. But what we did was to emphasize that we would go, shell drill, be it 4-on-4, 5-on-5. And we'd say you have either 3 minutes or you get 3 kills, whatever one comes. So if you don't get 3 kills in 3 minutes, or get a kill in 3 minutes, then you're out and you run. But if you get it, you don't have to run, and then the next team comes in. So that was something that we really emphasized. So at halftime, we always ideally wanted to have 3 or 4 kills. And if we had 1 or 2, we weren't going to be in a good predicament, most likely.
I really like that. Conversely, did you have your assistants track if they were getting kills against you that maybe you should take a timeout here, coach, they would say? Or was there anything they were tracking to maybe, like you said, that our offense isn't healthy or our defense isn't healthy, we should maybe take a timeout here?
No, we didn't do anything like that. I think that's just more off feel and feel in a game.
So this is one of the things I like when I'm watching your film. I know, Scott, you and I have talked about this, but just kind of in-game adjustments and having the same set but different ways that you guys run it. And we actually did a post, and we'll do another one on Slappin Glass about your guys' flip screens and stuff like that. Looking through a lot of your stuff, you guys really did a good job this year running this kind of lane line on-ball roll with a 4 replacing behind the action, and then being able to kind of play through that roll replace. But here, I think with Hilo showing at times that they would show or hedge hard or trap, you guys slip it and then have your guard play downhill into the paint. Can you maybe talk about this set a little bit and some of the adjustments that you can run out of it depending on what the defense is doing?
Yeah, so this was what we called 45, and 4-man comes down and sets a little screen. Actually, I think that this actually may have been 45 clear. So 45 would be your just traditional, if you want to get them up to setting the ball screen, would just be your traditional roll replace. So as the point guard comes off, 5-man would roll, and then 4-man who's down on the block would just do your traditional replace up. And you're looking to get the 4-man's defender helping, and you can kick back for the jump shot. When we ran 45 clear was we'd move this 4-man out to the corner. So we were either anticipating either a slip or reading the double if they were going to potentially double, looking to slip our big straight to the basket. And probably shouldn't have had Steph cut from the corner, but that's just an option out of it that we can get a read out of. His defenders face guarding him. Probably we teach our guys only when they see the back of the head to cut, but that's one of our sets that we run, and there's just several different options. So that was 45 clear.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Is this something you mentioned that you've been working on the whole season and preseason, or is this something as you prepare your scout against this team that, you put this wrinkle in during the week?
So that play was something that we'd had in all year, And as we go through a scout, we start to prepare, for how teams are guarding ball screens, and we'll have a list of adjustments. And because it's in the second half, we probably just ran it in the second half, let the first half flow, not allow any adjustments, and then in the second half do it.
Okay.
Coach, you had, as Dan kind of finds this, you had mentioned in your ball screen replace sort of offense. If your four men weren't the greatest shooters, you telling them, because obviously you want their man to help on the roll, as they make the catch, what are you trying to have them do next? Or what is your emphasis, like to quickly move into a handoff, or obviously to take advantage that for a second his defender is off of him?
So are we talking about if he pops?
Yeah. If he's replacing up high and he's not necessarily going to shoot it
on that roll replace action. Yeah, sorry,
the roll replace.
Yeah, I thought you just meant on a ball screen. So on the roll replace action, if he catches it, we're looking, obviously shot first, and if he has a driving lane, that would be the first thing for a quote unquote non-shooter. And if he's able to penetrate and make a play, that's great. If not, reverse it and then either cut hard to the rim or look to set a ball screen.
Okay, I think on these couple of sets here, we have another. So this was a great win by you guys late in the season at Concordia, one of the better teams in the conference last year. And they are, from everything I've seen on film and talking to you, pressure, try to get in the lane, show hard or double on balls, just try to make it really hard to run your stuff. So I like this set you guys ran here, kind of getting a pressure release counter for a nice look out of your kind of Euro on-ball section with the post-to-post pass. Can't get much better look than that.
No, that's a set we put in. And again, anytime a team looks to hedge or double, and they didn't actually really do it on that second ball screen, but we have a set where we bring that big to the opposite elbow and look for that exact action.
Okay. This will be the last clip we'll show you, and kind of ties back into what you were talking about earlier with special situation planning and end of the game scenarios. And you did actually reference this game and you guys fouling up 3. So here's the last play of your game at Concordia where you guys, or the second to last play, when you guys do take a foul. And I'll roll the clip because you did talk about fouling and how to foul and how to do it. They really sell it here, but on the game film, there's a little back and forth on whether or not this was going to be a shooting foul or not. He wasn't shooting, but he sold it pretty well.
Yeah.
Talk about this play and preparing to foul here. Would you have preferred him to take the foul closer to half court than when he ended up doing it? What do you teach in this situation when you've decided you're going to foul up 3?
Yeah, and this was a tough situation because this was the third straight time in a row we'd done it. Like the clock doesn't, obviously this is the third possession, but from like 12 seconds to where we are 7 seconds, this was like 4 possessions because we would foul. We fouled at half court, and then we got our free throws. As soon as we threw it in, they fouled us, or they fouled us before we got it in. I don't remember exactly. We got our free throws, and then we fouled us a little too soon in the backcourt on the previous possession.
Okay.
And we would want to foul right here with about 3.5 seconds left in the game. And we just weren't close enough. Dante, number 4, had been the guy to foul the last 2 possessions. And I think we somehow got switched off here. He got switched off.
Yep.
And we would have just liked it a little bit sooner. It's probably a situation that Vic, number 20, hadn't been in as the fouler. Okay. So just a little bit less prepared, but we, like I said, had worked on this, and that sales job because they knew it was coming. If it had been the first time, it's probably a little bit different, but it was the third time doing it.
How about what you're telling your guys on the ball are they funneling to the side? Or are they trying to just keep them in front? Like, what are you telling these frontline guys here as far as, you're going to foul, but are you trying to funnel them to foul somewhere on the sideline, or do you care which way they go?
Ideally, we'd like to funnel them to the sideline, but the biggest thing is just don't get beat.
Okay.
Keep him in front of you, give him space. He gets a little turned around there, and that's probably half the problem.
Yeah.
But just don't get beat. Keep him in front of you.
Are you working at all with your guys in practice on, let's say, how to foul?
Yes.
I mean, at least in Europe, there's the big thing with the intentional fouls. And, I was always taught to reach with your inside hand, because if you reach with your outside hand, they're more likely the intentional foul to call, at least in Europe. But with your guys, what are you teaching them?
No, I wouldn't say there's any specific tactics to it. We talk about, using your body to bump them as they dribble. But we're not, there's no, like you just talked about there. I've never really done that. We're talking more, just don't foul them on a shot. Keep them in front of you. And if you err on the side of fouling too early, if anything, but those would be the things we talk about.
And go ahead, Pat.
No, and then also too, if you want to have them run clock off before you foul, are you also, in the timeout, are you telling them foul at 10 or on the shot clock, or are you working on that in practice as well? More with the time management on the fouling, rather than when you foul too early and they still have time to get the clock off. If you have a foul to burn, let's say before a half, and you're like, let's take the foul it when there's 8 seconds left, and they foul at 14, and now you can't foul them again.
Yeah. We do. We're talking about this situation. It's not an exact science, but if it's like at the end of a half, in the first half, we'll talk more specifics. But in this situation, it was more of a location that I wanted it.
Do you have a set time in your head for the foul up 3? Is it under 10, under 8, under 5?
Ideally, like 8.
Okay.
Under 8. But again, it kind of depends on the situation, the team, et cetera.
And then just because we like to give everybody an extra level of behind the scenes here at Slappin Glass, did you guys notice, I've watched this clip a lot of times preparing, but the ref just absolutely eat it over here on the far right. I mean, he slides so far into the cheerleader. In real time, he takes a pretty good tumble. Not the first time we've seen a ref take a good tumble, but all right. Well, Scott, thanks so much for going through those.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Coach.
No problem.
So I guess as we wrap up here, Pat, any other questions as we're starting to close?
No, I've asked them all.
I guess my sort of closing thought for you, Scott, is just your advice in closing for assistants. Now that you've gone from being an assistant for so many years and now you're a head coach, what advice can you give assistant coaches out there that are trying to, one, just be better assistant coaches to the head coach, but then also try to work on their skills to become a head coach? What advice would you give now that you're sitting in that seat that would really help you from your staff?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, ask the head coach that you're working for your strengths, your weaknesses. Know what your current boss thinks about you. Secondly, be good at the job you're at. Don't be the guy who's looking 3 jobs down the line or for your next job when you're in your current job. If you're good at the job you're at, that's the most important thing, and that'll lead to success. Third, a lot of networking. Get to know people and make it genuine. Don't just form a relationship with somebody for what they can offer you. Offer it because it's a genuine, authentic relationship. I think people can get caught up in, I know this guy well, and he's going to help me. Well, that's not necessarily the case. So make sure it's a transformational relationship where you guys both can learn and get to know each other, and not just when you need something. Be prepared. It's the fourth thing. I think, as much as I was prepared to be a head coach, there were still some things that I wasn't quite prepared for. And be prepared for as much as you can. Have a list of assistants, have things that you would do, and have it all in your mind already. Have, I had a book of things that kind of helped me through this process as I'd gone through taking notes from previous staffs, things I saw that I liked, and just have it all available for you, and just gives you more, backup for when that opportunity does come, because there's going to be an element of preparedness, but the more you can be prepared, just the better off you'll be.
That's great advice.
As we close, where can people find you, to follow you, to reach out, to follow your team as you guys are heading into this new season?
Yeah, you can go to our website. I think it's artuathletics.edu. And then if you want to reach out to me, my email is swaterman@academyart.edu. Academy Art's one word. On Twitter @Coach Waterman. Shoot me a direct message. Would love to talk to anybody. And help out in any way I can, because I've been in a lot of people's footsteps in a lot of different positions, and we'll do whatever I can to help you out. That's for sure.
Well, appreciate that. And hey, Scott, thanks so much again for coming on. And I mean, this is so much fun just to talk deep dive basketball.
Without question.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Coach.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. You guys are doing great work. And I will say, back in 2006, when I was at Long Beach State and we played you guys at Chapman, that was a fun game for one of us.
Yeah. I'm glad someone enjoyed it.
Pat was the leading scorer in that game for Chapman.
That's right.
Yeah. I don't think it was very efficient. My athleticism didn't shine in that game like I thought it would.
No, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for having me on.